up to 45% tariff on Chinese-built and imported electric vehicles. Your reaction and analysis of that number?
The European Union has recently announced tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles, citing concerns over state subsidies.
European Union countries have agreed to impose new tariffs of up to 35% on electric cars from China. That's on top of the existing 10% duties.
This move has the potential to reshape the global automotive market, spark trade tensions, and impact the climate goals of the EU. According to Reuters, this tariff could range between 10% and 45%, targeting Chinese manufacturers that dominate the growing EV industry. This development is drawing sharp reactions from China and stirring debates across industries worldwide. The EU's imposition of tariffs follows an investigation into Chinese EV makers, such as BYD, NIO, and XPeng. The Financial Times reports that the EU believes these firms benefit from unfair subsidies, which allow them to undercut European competitors.
China has raced ahead of the rest of the world in producing electric vehicles. It's making them faster and cheaper than in Europe or the United States. But its Western competitors say state subsidies are giving Chinese car makers an unfair advantage.
Chinese EVs are often sold at prices significantly lower than those of European counterparts. The Chinese government has sharply criticized the tariffs, with The Guardian quoting the Chinese Ministry of Commerce as calling them unfair and protectionist. Despite the tension, China has signaled its willingness to engage in dialogue with the EU to resolve the issue. One of the driving factors behind the European Union's decision to impose tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles is the need to protect its domestic auto industry. The automotive sector in Europe has long been a cornerstone of its industrial economy, with major players such as Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and Renault representing both economic and symbolic pillars of European innovation. However, in recent years, these traditional automakers have been increasingly threatened by the rapid rise of Chinese EV companies like BYD, NIO, and XPeng.
BYD, the world's largest EV manufacturer. How did they get there? And can they stay on top?
Which have been making significant inroads into the European market. According to the Wall Street Journal, European car makers are losing market share, particularly in the mid- and low-range EV sectors, where Chinese manufacturers excel in offering high-quality, lower-cost alternatives. Chinese EVs, backed by substantial government subsidies, are often priced more competitively than their European counterparts, making them attractive to budget-conscious consumers. This influx of affordable EVs from China has heightened concerns that Europe's automotive giants could face long-term declines in market share, profits, and even jobs if they cannot compete effectively with these newcomers. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has expressed concerns over the implications of this competition, emphasizing the need to safeguard European jobs and innovation. In a recent speech, she highlighted the importance of protecting Europe's transition to clean energy, ensuring that this shift does not come at the cost of its domestic industries. She argued that the Chinese government's subsidies, which allow its automakers to sell EVs at lower prices, create unfair competition and jeopardize European companies' ability to innovate and invest in green technologies. As Europe strives to meet its climate goals, von der Leyen and other EU leaders believe it is essential to ensure that European manufacturers remain competitive in the global EV market. The pressure is particularly acute for automakers like Renault and Volkswagen, which have invested heavily in their EV production as part of Europe's broader push towards sustainability. Bloomberg reports that Renault has seen a steady decline in sales, particularly in segments where it once dominated, due to Chinese competition. Volkswagen, the largest car manufacturer in Europe, has also been affected by the rise of Chinese brands, especially in the budget and mid-range segments that are critical to its market share. In response, European automakers are pushing their governments to take stronger action. They argue that without protective measures like tariffs, the European auto industry risks falling behind in the race to produce affordable, high-quality electric vehicles. As Europe transitions toward a carbon-neutral future, driven by policies that aim to phase out internal combustion engines by 2035, the region's manufacturers must remain leaders in EV innovation. The industry supports millions of jobs across Europe, and any significant losses in market share to foreign competitors could lead to factory closures and layoffs, with far-reaching economic consequences. Within the EU, there is division regarding the tariff decision. While countries like France and Italy strongly support the move, Germany, Europe's largest economy, has expressed concerns. Bloomberg highlights Germany's worry that tariffs could lead to retaliation from China, a critical market for German auto exports. German car manufacturers, including Volkswagen and BMW, have significant stakes in the Chinese market, with sales in China accounting for nearly 40% of their global revenue. The potential for an EU-China trade war looms large. CNBC warns that the tariffs could provoke retaliatory measures from China, not only in the auto sector but across industries such as agriculture and luxury goods. French wine, Italian fashion, and German industrial machinery could become targets if China escalates the conflict. A trade war would have a cascading effect, harming not just automakers but other industries reliant on EU-China trade relationships. Experts like those at Euronews are concerned that this could exacerbate existing geopolitical tensions and disrupt global supply chains. The potential trade dispute between the European Union and China over electric vehicle (EV) tariffs could have far-reaching consequences, affecting not just the two regions but also global markets. According to the New York Times, disruptions could ripple through industries in the United States, Japan, and other key economies, particularly those involved in high-tech products and commodities. In the United States, the EV market is highly competitive, with major players like Tesla vying for dominance. Tesla, in particular, has significant interests in both Europe and China, and any shift in the trade relationship between these two regions could impact its operations and sales. As one of the global leaders in EV production, Tesla could see changes in market dynamics, with competition intensifying or weakening depending on how the dispute unfolds. If tariffs result in higher costs for Chinese EV imports in Europe, it could open up opportunities for American automakers to expand their presence in the European market, potentially benefiting companies like Tesla, Ford, and General Motors. Meanwhile, Japan, with its well-established auto industry, is closely monitoring the situation as well. Japanese automakers such as Toyota, Nissan, and Honda, already facing fierce competition in the EV market, may find new opportunities to fill the gap left by any reduction in Chinese and European competition due to tariffs. Japan has been pushing forward with its own EV innovations, and a prolonged EU-China trade dispute could give its automakers a chance to capture greater market share in Europe, particularly in the mid-range and luxury EV segments. The tariffs are expected to lead to an increase in EV prices across Europe. The Economist notes that Chinese EVs, which are popular due to their affordability, could become significantly more expensive, making them less attractive to European consumers. This could lead to a slowdown in EV adoption, especially as Europe strives to reduce its carbon emissions by promoting electric vehicles. According to Automotive News Europe, the price increase might push consumers back toward traditional combustion vehicles, derailing the EU's efforts to meet its 2035 target for phasing out fossil fuel-powered cars. The impact of these tariffs on the EU's climate goals cannot be overlooked. Higher EV prices could deter consumers from making the switch from petrol and diesel cars. The BBC reports that European policymakers are concerned this could slow progress on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, particularly as the EU has set ambitious targets to reach net zero emissions by 2050. Experts at the World Economic Forum have also noted that a slower adoption of EVs could hinder the development of green infrastructure, such as charging stations, which are crucial for widespread EV use. Smaller European automakers, already struggling with tight margins, may find themselves in a precarious position. While the tariffs might provide temporary relief from Chinese competition, The Guardian suggests that higher production costs could push smaller firms out of the market. These companies, unable to compete with larger manufacturers on price or production scale, could face significant financial pressures. Some analysts believe that consolidation in the European auto industry is inevitable, with only the strongest and most adaptable firms surviving this challenging period. The competition between European and Chinese automakers goes beyond tariffs. Chinese EV manufacturers have been able to rapidly innovate and scale production thanks to significant investment in research and development. Nikkei Asia highlights that firms like BYD and Geely are leading the charge in battery technology, a critical component of EVs, while European companies lag. According to Bloomberg, European automakers are struggling to compete with the cost efficiencies and technological advancements achieved by their Chinese counterparts, raising questions about the future competitiveness of Europe's auto industry. China's rise in the EV market is no accident. The country has positioned itself as a leader through strategic investments and government support. The New York Times reports that China is now the world's largest EV market, accounting for more than 40% of global EV sales. Chinese companies have also made inroads into Europe, with brands like BYD expanding their presence across the continent. This growing influence is a reflection of China's broader ambitions to dominate not only the EV market, but also other high-tech industries, such as renewable energy and artificial intelligence. The ongoing shift toward Asia in high-tech industries is a key theme in global economic trends. According to the Financial Times, Asia's leadership in fields like electric vehicles and renewable energy signals a rebalancing of power in the global economy. European and American firms, long dominant in the auto sector, are now facing stiff competition from Asian counterparts. The rise of Asian tech giants is reshaping the future of industries critical to sustainability and innovation. If China retaliates, the consequences could be severe for European businesses that rely on the Chinese market. Bloomberg reports that German automakers could see a significant drop in sales in China if Chinese consumers turn to domestic brands. Similarly, luxury goods companies like LVMH and Kering, which rely on Chinese consumers, could face declining revenues. The EU must weigh the benefits of protecting its auto industry against the risk of broader economic fallout from a potential trade conflict with one of its largest trading partners. The escalation of trade tensions between the EU and China could also threaten global climate goals. The Independent highlights concerns that higher EV prices will discourage consumers from adopting electric vehicles, slowing down the transition to cleaner energy sources. This could have a ripple effect on other sectors, such as renewable energy, as countries face budget constraints and shifting priorities. A trade war could ultimately delay progress on reducing global carbon emissions, making it harder for the world to meet its climate targets. Despite the risks, there is hope for compromise. Both the EU and China have significant economic interests at stake, and negotiations could lead to a more balanced solution. Politico suggests that the EU might reconsider the scale of the tariffs if China agrees to scale back subsidies or opens its market further to European products. Diplomatic efforts could help de-escalate tensions, preventing a full-blown trade war and ensuring that both sides can benefit from the growing global EV market. The EU's tariffs on Chinese EVs are a reflection of the shifting global economic landscape. As China emerges as a dominant player in high-tech industries, Europe faces the challenge of protecting its industries while remaining competitive. The outcome of this dispute will have lasting implications for the future of the automotive industry, trade relations between the EU and China, and global efforts to combat climate change. The road ahead will require careful negotiation, innovation,